What's up, all you beautiful people? Welcome to another video. If you have a business that's struggling to grow right now, maybe you're doing $10,000 a month, $100,000 or $1 million, doesn't really matter. I'm going to share with you a process that you can use to identify what is the thing that's slowing you down and what you need to do to relieve it and start moving faster. I love this framework because it works regardless of what kind of business that you have. It works regardless of what size of business that you have. And business is nothing more than like the systematic identification and removal of the biggest constraint. The quicker that you can do that, the quicker that you can cycle through identifying and then alleviating the constraints inside your business, the quicker that you're going to grow. And so this isn't going to be a tactical conversation in terms of go to Facebook and run an ad and do this thing. Like I don't care about that stuff. I'm more interested in the high level strategic thinking, because that is your most important work as the founder. So what I call this the 4 C's. It starts with first getting clarity in your business right now. Maybe when you started, you grew really quickly. Maybe it took forever and you started getting a little bit of traction, whatever. At this point, you need to identify what is the actual goal that you're trying to achieve, right? Because every solution is in function of a goal. So if you don't have a clear target, okay, we're trying to go from 10,000 to 25,000 in the next 30 days, right? If you don't have that and you just say, I want to grow, which is how a lot of us operate in the beginning, right? Or honestly, not even in the beginning, like surprisingly late in the entrepreneurial journey, we still kind of operate without like really clear targets about what it is that we're trying to do. And so we're just like we're pulling levers. We want to grow, right? And grow is not specific enough to be able to then identify what are the inputs and the lead measures that we would need to execute in order to grow. So it's not enough just to say, I want to grow, but we got to get clear. I want to grow by this much in this period of time, or this is how we want to grow. We want to increase our margins by X%, or we want to decrease our overhead expenses, whatever it is. Like, you have to have that target first. So get clear. A problem, what is it? A problem well-defined is half answered, right? So we need to first know what is the problem that we're trying to answer. Second is now we start to ask ourselves, what is the constraint? What is the single constraint within the business that if we were to alleviate would solve that problem the quickest? Now you'll notice like that's going to be wildly different depending on what you set the goal as. Like if your goal is to double your lead flow in the next 30 days, the way that you are going to identify the constraint in the system, or at least the constraint that you're going to identify in the system, is going to be different than the constraint you would find if the goal was to decrease churn over the next 30 days. Right? Different problem, different goal that you're trying to solve, different constraints you're going to identify. So this is important because when people look at their business and we talk about the theory of constraints, a lot of times they're like, well, I don't know what the constraint is because that's constraint and that's constraint and that's constraint. And you're like, yeah, those are all constraints. So which one do you solve first? Well, it depends on what the goal is. Whatever goal you have has a single constraint. When you don't have a single goal, just simply we want to grow, then you have all sorts of constraints, right? So the more specific you get about the problem, the more easily you're going to identify the constraint. And that usually is going to boil down to leads, sales, product, or operations. It's going to be one of those broad categories that you're going to identify the constraint within. But once you have that constraint identified and you're like, okay, so our goal is to decrease churn. Right now, our constraint is we don't have enough customer success representatives, or we don't have a dialed in process that is delivering a great result for our clients. And so the first thing that we need to do is ensure that all of our clients are getting results within the first 30 days. Cool. You have clarity about what the goal is, decrease churn. You have an idea of what the constraint is, which is we're not delivering results to all the clients within the first 30 days. Now we move to the third C, which is commitment. What resources are you going to throw at this problem? That's the big question here. It's not enough just to identify it and say, okay, everybody else run at this. You need to look at your time. You need to look at your energy. You need to look at your people. You need to look at your capital and say, what are we going to allocate towards solving this problem? right? Because that really chalks the field. Now, if you haven't done like a time management audit recently, this is going to be really impactful, especially if you're still a small business. Maybe it's just you or maybe a couple people on your team. Time management stands for time blocking, impact, money, and energy. It's where you go through your calendar, you look at where you're currently spending your time, and you figure out, okay, what makes the biggest impact on my business, what makes me the most money, what fills me with most energy. Now, as you're trying to map this new constraint onto your calendar, you want to be looking and saying, like, where do I have the bandwidth to be able to do this? Like, what are the resources I can throw at this? But if you don't do this step, if you don't like make a tangible commitment to solving the thing, then don't expect that it's going to change, especially if you have a team. If you have a team of like, God, this happens all the time where we sit down, you have a leadership meeting, you have the heads of your different departments and divisions in there, and you say, okay, here's the big initiative that we're going to move towards. And people are like, cool, that sounds great. And then you leave the meeting and nothing changes. And you come back and you're like, well, why didn't anything change? It's because the person that was ultimately responsible for like enacting the change didn't actually have the resources. Nothing changed. They're like, well, I still had all this other stuff on my calendar. Like I still needed to get all these other projects done. Nobody on my team had any bandwidth. And so sometimes the commitment that you make, the resource that you allocate is to say, hey, Dave, you're going to take that other project, that other thing that's consuming 15% of your time each week. You're going to get rid of it for the next 3 weeks. And you're going to slot in this new project until completed. And then we can bring this back. So that's why doing the time management, like schedule audit is so valuable, not just for you, but also for your team to see like, where can we free up some bandwidth and what are we going to throw at this problem? Which then leads us to the fourth C, which is consistency. The question that you want to ask is who's responsible, by when, and how. So the more clear you can get about who is going to step in, Dave, you're running this show, right? When's it going to be done by? You have 3 weeks to get this done by. How are you going to get this done? Well, you're going to get rid of that other thing that was on your calendar, and you're going to slot this in. Here's what you have available to you. You can use Cindy and you can use Tim as extra resources, and you have a budget of $1,000 and run, right? Get really clear about who, when, and how this thing is going to get done, and then create a dashboard or a scorecard to measure. You need to have a KPI. Like when I say dashboard, sometimes we get a little bit over the top zealous with this, and it becomes like this crazy thing. It's like, no, a simple dashboard can literally just be like, what are the two numbers that we're going to measure to know that we're moving towards this? It's always good to have two numbers. The reason for that is because if you only ever have one number you're trying to optimize for, then it usually comes at the expense of something else. Like if you want to increase sales, well, then you might be inadvertently also increasing your churn because people are bringing in less qualified individuals. They're making bigger concessions to get them in the door, even though they're not a good fit. They're not going to get a good result, and therefore they're going to churn. So you wouldn't want to just incentivize somebody to make more sales. You would want to say, hey, make more sales and also maintain the same level of churn, right? Those two numbers are compatible to go together. But right there, that's a 2-number scorecard. And you need to have that for this constraint that you're trying to alleviate. So when you go to, I think it was Dave, right? Dave, I think that is your name over there. Yeah. Dave, what are your 2 numbers? What are the 2 numbers that we're going to track to know that over these next 3 weeks, we're moving towards the goal and not accidentally, inadvertently sacrificing something else in the process? So to review, get clear about what you're trying to accomplish. What is the problem you want to solve? Number 2, what is the constraint that is currently keeping that problem from being solved? Number 3, what is the commitment that you're going to make in terms of allocating scarce resources? Number 4, what is the consistency that you are going to execute to get this done? What is who, when, and how are they going to get this damn thing done? And right there, if you go through this process, and this isn't like a quarterly thing. This isn't an annual thing. This is like every single week, reevaluating, getting clear about what is we're trying to do, what is the constraint, what is the commitment we're willing to make, and how are we going to consistently follow through with this. If you do this on a fast enough time cycle, you are going to grow like freaking gangbusters. So what are you waiting for? You do not want to make more money? That sounds crazy. Like, go make more money in your business. Go use this right now. And then, come back and tell me how much money you made. That'd be rad. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you in the next video.